G'day, my name's Dan Wu. I did a ministry apprenticeship from 2001 to 2002 at St Paul's Anglican Church in Carlingford, Sydney. And in my current ministry role, I'm a lecturer here at Moore College, also in Sydney, and I lecture mostly in Old Testament. And to be honest, it wasn't exactly the ministry path that I had envisioned at the time, basically to be a professional nerd. But there's God's plans and your plans, and God's plans always win out, so that's a good lesson to learn. My path to ministry began at an early age, and so I think the person most directly responsible was my mum. And what she did was just give a faithful, consistent witness of godly Christian living. But basically, I have a clear memory that each night after stories, she would pray with me and my older brothers. And the shape of the prayers would be very, very similar. She would just remind us that God is God, that Jesus loves us and died for us, and that we should want to love and serve God with our whole hearts. And then she'd pray along those lines. And just doing that night by night, I guess that just became part of me and part of how I thought the world worked. And so as I got older, I started to pray that if God wanted me to serve him in this capacity of vocational ministry, that he would open the doors for me to be able to do that. And in his kindness and in his sovereignty, that's what happened. So in 2001, I finished up my work as an IT consultant and began my ministry apprenticeship. And they really were 2 great years of life. I look back on them with great fondness, real highlight, and so important in preparing me for a lifetime of serving God. To be able to live the ministry life on the ground in a real way, but also carefully guided and protected. And the fellowship around me, I think, was the real highlight. So great group of trainers that were helping me to grow and mature in my ministry. Very supportive church, challenging and encouraging people all the time. And perhaps most of all was the great cohort of ministry trainees that we had. And it was really a great time just being in that fellowship as we did ministry together, but also shared life together. And so we would have afternoons where we would just spend the time together playing table tennis or touch footy, or even cricket in the basement, trying to give each other as many bruises as we could with our fast balls, which I think puts Proverbs, the wounds of a friend are better than the kisses of an enemy into a whole new light. Plenty of wounds from friends back then. But I think 3 highlights from my ministry apprenticeship, which I think it'd be good to share. So number 1 was what the ministry apprenticeship gave me, and most foundationally was it helped me really to ground and set my philosophy of ministry, my approach to ministry. And so actually doing things and then having a chance to reflect on them and to think through them with someone really helped me to shape my basic approach of what am I meant to be doing, why am I meant to be doing these things, and how would I take the principles and ideas and take them to a very different setting with very different people. And they're actually skills and things that I still apply in my ministry today in theological education. Secondly, the ministry apprenticeship exposed me to situations which were really challenging, but also having a ministry focus and having just done the experience of ministry really helped orient me towards what was next in my journey towards vocational ministry, and that was theological study. And so having those pastoral situations where people had raised issues or come with beliefs and ways of thinking about the world that were really complex and challenging to deal with meant that when we studied certain subjects that otherwise I would have maybe not found so beneficial, like philosophy and that sort of stuff, it really helped to hear something in a lecture and go, oh, hang on, I talked to someone who said something very similar. And so to understand that, pull it apart, and then be able to put it back together in a theological framework, a God-centered framework, was remarkably important for a lifetime of ministry. And I guess that's the third thing, is that the other thing that the ministry apprenticeship really showed me was how important it was if I was going to enter a lifetime of vocational word teaching ministry to do theological study in a sustained, rigorous way. Because real ministry has to deal with the complexities and the messiness of life. And you've got to do it over such a sustained period of time, meeting all new challenges. I mean, you think about this year with COVID and everything, we've really had to think hard about what does church mean? What does ministry look like when we can't meet together? And so if you want to sustain yourself through a lifetime of ministry, then you need a really solid, well thought out foundation from which to think through how do you respond to these situations. And really, ministry apprenticeship raised those things and showed me how much theological study was necessary for a lifetime of vocational ministry. So if you're someone who is seeking to serve God with your life, and if you want to have a taste of ministry and feel out how do you live this out, how do you respond to these situations in a real way, then I highly recommend something like an MTS ministry apprenticeship. Hope you've found my experience helpful for you, and I wish you all the best in your endeavours to serve God with your life.